And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Dawg Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Reno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley and Koby Pyrz. I got it right this weekend. I did not butcher it. I was talking to Dan pre-show before Koby hopped on here. I knew how to say it. I knew what it sounded like. I knew what it was, and I butchered it anyways. But hey, that's the Top Dawg Talk experience over here. Gentlemen, how are you doing this fine Wednesday evening?
I'm doing much better now that I've got
Sunday.
food in my stomach. Um, sorry we're late. Hey, we are late because of me. I had to eat dinner, but we're here and we're ready to go.
I forgive you, Dan. I hope it was delicious.
It was tacos.
Ooh. It's not even Taco Tuesday yet. The man's already having tacos. Hey, heck of a start to the week. We have a loaded show for you today. We do not have a Georgia game to react to, which is usually what the Sunday show would be if there was a Georgia game. But we're talking football nonetheless. Gentlemen, before we dive into the playoff previews, we will be previewing the upper half of the first round matchups. So we will have Texas and Clemson and Ohio State and Tennessee today. I think probably two of the better games on the schedule for the first round. One of them to me right now is still a toss-up in terms of who I'm going to predict to win tonight. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll talk myself into it. Maybe one of these two great gentlemen will talk me into one or the other. But before we hop into that, let's talk some Georgia football real quick. We are not going to be previewing the second round game until next week. Obviously, on Wednesday, we will preview the latter half of the first round matchups. And then next Sunday, we will give our thoughts and reactions to what went down in the first half. And Wednesday's show of that week will be our preview show. But first, let's talk about Georgia's offense, because I think that's the hot button topic. That's going to be on everyone's mind from here until January 1st when Georgia plays whoever they play in the quarterfinal of the college football playoff. Gentlemen, the one question I have, and I think it's the question that everyone's asking right now, is how much will Georgia change its offense? This year, this season, we've known two things about Georgia's offense. One, it's been really inconsistent. I mean, inconsistent to the point where we come on this show and we don't know what Georgia offense we're going to see week to week. Two, it is a pass to run football team. Georgia ranks in the bottom 90, ranks 98th, bottom 100. They rank 98th in rushing offense per game. That is as bad of a number I've seen from a Kirby Smart football team here at Georgia in a long time. I don't think they've ever ranked this low in the Kirby Smart era. Gentlemen, to open the show, what are y'all expecting in terms of a Gunner Stockton-led Georgia offense? Dan, we'll start with you.
Well, I think first and foremost, the one thing that you're going to see is Georgia's going to run the ball a little bit more. It's twofold. One, because you're adding a quarterback to the run game, which is a +1 in the run game, and it's always a good thing. So I think first and foremost, that's one of the main reasons that they're going to run the ball more. The second part of that is you want to take a little bit of pressure off of a young and experienced quarterback. He may not be young as term is age anymore. However, in-game experience at this level, yes. Experience in high pressure situations like this at this level, 0. So there's a multitude of different reasons. And then a third reason, so one is he is adding quarterback to the run, so it's going to run more. 2 is take some pressure off of him, and 3 is you have 2 extremely talented running backs, and they're going to try to lean on them. So I think that's the biggest change you're going to see is you are going to see a little bit more of a focus on the running game. And in my opinion, I would assume that Gunner is going to be part of that plan. Maybe I'm wrong. Koby might have a different perspective.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that you're going to see a lot more of the true read option where the quarterback has a very legitimate chance to keep that ball and make an extra defender, account for him at all times. I think that it's going to be a simplified offensive game plan. Like, I don't think they're going to run out there and ask Gunner to lead the offense the way that maybe Carson was leading, 20-plus games starting in his career. And I don't think it's fair to ask him to do that. I think, the biggest thing is, kind of like Kirby said, it's going to put a lot of pressure on some guys to do their job, to know their assignment, to know their route, and do a really good job of it. And if we draw up a big play, it's going to be more important, not only because you're in the playoffs, but also because of the change at quarterback. If we draw up a big play and it's supposed to go to you, not only do I need you to do what you're supposed to do correctly, Then if we throw you the ball or throw you the screen, whatever, I need you to catch the ball and make a play with it. I don't need it to be like, oh, well, I took my eyes off the ball, I dropped it, or, oh, I was in the wrong area when I ran my route. Like I was supposed to break out and I kind of didn't really break out when I was supposed to. And then, I'm late breaking out of my route. So I think that the offense, I think the fact that we got the bye is going to be such a big part of like, you get some time to make ETN fully healthy. Like there should be very little health concerns for people who aren't out for the season, I feel like. So it could be one of the healthiest games you've been a part of since Clemson. And in that, same sense that you also are giving Gunner a lot of time to try to learn.
Yeah, I think having 3 weeks, as you said, for Mike Bobo and Gunner Stockton to acclimate and to get to know what each other likes and what they want to do is huge. Also, building chemistry with the playmakers on the outside receiver. Georgia leads the nation in drops. I know that's a broken record. It's repeated over and over and over again. But I think what's been a big problem within that has been, I don't know if the chemistry's been there. I don't know if the receivers have always been on the same page with Carson. I think that problem could either be exacerbated with a backup quarterback in there starting now as your starting quarterback, or maybe you see a little bit of a difference. Maybe Gunner's a little bit easier to play with just in terms of, hey, like Koby said, it's going to be a simplified offense. At least we think it will be. Who knows? If Gunner's a 1-out-of-1 processor, they may just throw the whole book at him like they have with Carson Beck. I am really curious, gentlemen, in terms of this question. We started off this segment talking about how Georgia's been a pass-to-run football team. Now it seems like they're going to be a run-to-pass, the more traditional Georgia Kirby Smart offense. It's what Koby saw throughout his time at Georgia, and maybe he was even there to see the evolution maybe towards to what it is now. My question is, can this Georgia team be physically dominant like they have in the past and be a successful run-the-pass football team? I think that's the scariest part about this right now is we haven't seen Georgia really dominate the lines of scrimmage like they have in the past. Dan, you're muted.
I'm turning into Harrison every day.
The muted damn it right there was the best part of that. It was
damn it, boy.
I'm turning into Harrison every day, I swear to God. All right, so let's I just completely lost my train of thought. So this season, the most physical team that we've played, in my estimation, would be Texas, right? On the defensive line, offensive line, the big behemoth guys. Alabama was a tough team. I'm not trying to take anything away from Alabama. That's not the purpose of the comment. But I don't look at any of those teams in the playoff that are in our path that I am concerned that we can't match up with physically, if that makes any sense. If I look at our path, I think it's a reasonable assumption to think a higher probability we play Notre Dame in the first round. Okay. When I look at Notre Dame's team, I don't see a nasty get after it football team. Riley, what's his name? Strickland? Is it Riley? No,
Leonard.
Skinner. Riley Leonard. Yeah, there's just so many whatevers. So anyway, like he's a really talented guy, but they don't have burners on the outside. They don't have elite weapons all over the place. Their running backs aren't anything to write home about. I'm not overly concerned about that game. Watch us lose. But then in the second round, you look at Boise State, right? They have an incredible running back, but I don't know if they can get through Penn State. And if you're talking about matching up with Penn State, the one thing I would use to describe Penn State is not physical. The James Franklin teams never show up in big games. So I'm not really concerned about that. By the time you get to a championship potential, it would be what, maybe Oregon or Ohio State? Leonard Skinner. How about that? But my point is, I don't see anybody that could potentially be in our path that I'm concerned that would out physical us. So if you're asking me, or if you're asking Georgia to be the more physical team, I don't think that's much of an ask for anybody that's in their path.
Let's talk about bounce off of Dan's. Let's talk about some of the greats over the last 10 years of college football. When you think about football teams and you think about coaches who have kind of repeated things over and over again, you think of Kirby Smart, you think of Nick Saban, kind of hate to hear it, but you think of Dabo Swinney. And you think about those years that Dabo and Clemson kind of sleepwalk through the ACC, and then you give them, or Alabama, kind of struggles there to the end. Then you give them a month, 3 weeks to a month to prepare. And you just look at even us. When we're given more than 10 days to prepare, I think you're 18-1 or something crazy under Kirby Smart. But it's the amount of time and effort into game planning and the physicality. I mean, I think that people understand how, this year, how underrated it's going to be that you're going to have a week to practice purely on yourself, and then a week to practice on Notre Dame or Indiana. And then I think you have more than a week before the next round as well. I think it's 10 days instead of 7. So I just think that all of those things are going to have such a positive impact for the higher seeds. I think it's going to be great for, Boise State. I think it's going to be great for Arizona State. One of the more fun teams I think that I'm going to be watching this playoff, that they are hot. They've got a fun coach. They've got a fun running back. You just never know what that extra preparation, that extra rest may do for somebody. As far as being more physical, I mean, I'm just not sure that there are many more physical teams in all of football than Georgia. I think they're a flash in the pans. I mean, I think Ole Miss out-physicaled us this year. I think that's the only game I feel like we got out-physicaled in all year. But, can you sustain it? Can you do it? Can you do it over, a extended amount of time, a 4-quarter game? Kind of like Kirby and them have been saying, we're going to do this for 60 minutes or as long as it takes, until this game gets done.
Koby, you've been in that building. You've been through a playoff preparation. You've been through bowl practice. And I know this is a very vastly different schedule than what you were accustomed to in your time at Georgia. What is it like playing under Kirby Smart with a month or 3 weeks to prepare? Is there obvious differences in what you see throughout the week during the season? Is it more similar to fall camp? How would you compare bowl practices under Kirby Smart?
Yeah, Kirby has always preached a big thing of that you can over prepare and over focus and almost obsess over a team. And, it's always been one of his big talking points. We need time to prepare and to work on ourselves. I think you hear it a lot of times when the media ask him questions the bye week prior to Florida. It's like, oh, are you already preparing for Florida right now? And he's kind of like, no, the first 2 or 3 practices, they're about us. And I think that's really how he's going to attack this off time is he's going to take, they probably started practice. I think somebody said this past weekend. Say we have 15 practices between now and the time we play Indiana or Notre Dame. He's going to take probably 6 of those, 7 of those, and he's going to work on what's it look like with Gunner at quarterback. Who is going to be the clear-cut number 2 behind Gunner? Is it going to be Rashada? Is it going to be Pug? And at that point, those practices are going to be like, do we need to make any changes? Do we need to have a different guy coming out? Is somebody playing hot at receiver that maybe hasn't been getting enough burn? Is it time for a Nitro Tuggle to be a key part of the offense? It's those 6 or 7 practices to kind of answer those questions, because once you start working on an opponent, you go back to you're running things versus the scout team. You're running things that are designed to be correct. What a crazy 7 practices it's going to be to kind of re-scramble, refigure out everything, make sure that anything you're wanting to put in has been put in and that Gunner understands the game plan going forward, and to make sure that the offensive line, the tight ends, I just think that you are going to look vastly different in this game than you've looked a lot of the year. And I think it's going to be a good thing. I think you're going to play to Gunner's strengths. And that's going to be running the ball. I think it's going to be throwing the ball to the tight end, getting the ball out of his hand quickly, not necessarily dropping back and doing a five-step drop and reading 3 different reads and then having to come back to a check down.
Dan, you know what this reminds me of? And I get it. It's way different circumstances. Totally different. Well, not totally different time, but it is different in just 4 years' time. This reminds me of when Jamie Newman made the infamous decision to opt out of his senior season at Georgia, the 2020 season, just a few weeks before the season opener versus Arkansas. In all of Georgia's plans that they had in place for Jamie Newman had to get scrapped, and they had to start adapting. They had to start changing. They had to get a new quarterback ready to go. I don't remember the exact timeline of when Jamie opted out versus when Georgia opened their season versus Arkansas that year, but you went from Jamie Newman, veteran, transfer quarterback, going to be your guy in 2020, to, hey, Jamie Newman's out. He said, peace. We're going to prepare for the NFL. We got to get a inexperienced, young DeJuan Mathis ready to play in just a few weeks' time. Obviously, how that turned out didn't go as well. But this isn't, I guess, unfamiliar territory for Kirby Smart and that coaching staff.
First of all, shame on you. You just said his name 9 freaking times in the span of 38 seconds. We don't say that name around these parts. He's a turncoat, a traitor, and Quincy Avery. That's on you, buddy, 100%. So you're right in that regard. Something I was going to say before you went on your little diatribe there was, one of the biggest fears I think a coaching staff has. I know if you've ever played football and you've ever been, in an extended stretch where you have a bunch of practices without a game, is there are a couple different things that can creep in. One, if you have an extremely physical football team, which Georgia likes to pride itself being, is you've got to be able to allow your guys to practice physically, but then also protect yourself from injury. And I know that's something that Kirby has talked about. Having Kobe on the show is going to really screw up this Kirby shit. Just saying that. But anyway, Kirby has made mention a couple different times is that they've got to protect themselves from themselves so that they don't end up hurting each other because they want to hit. But then the other side of that is if you back off a little too much, you get some complacency and some just guys becoming lethargic and not really being mentally involved and ready to go. And when that happens, you can have an area where you don't get better as a team through practice. You actually start getting worse as a team. You start sliding backwards. And I'm sure anybody that's ever been part of a team before has seen that, where, yeah, you're practicing every day, but like the enthusiasm, the level of intensity and stuff like that is not where it needs to be. And it's almost like those reps don't even count. They don't even matter. It's like they're not productive reps. You see it a lot in basketball because basketball is very stale. A lot of teams just play. Once the season starts, it's like the practices are kind of like conditioning and just getting your shot right, where you're not really running X's and O's stuff because it can be counterproductive sometimes, where, football's just such a repetitive sport. And I know, Kobe, you've played for a long time. Anybody that's ever played and practiced at a high level over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, there are some coaches who are very, very regimented, where every practice is exactly the same. I don't think Kirby is that way. I think him and his staff try to change it up, but maybe they don't. I've never been in one of Kirby's practices. Maybe they're exactly the damn same every single day. I don't know, but I know a lot of coaches really struggle with large stretches of practice. So I would be interested to know on a day-to-day basis how much of an effort he is making to change it up, how he's going to try to keep these guys physical but keep them healthy, and how he's going to provide that, or how he's going to prevent that regression just through repetition. There's a lot going on, Harrison. There's a lot. And as a coach, this is where you have to do your best job, because you're ultimately responsible for having those guys ready to play the minute that whistle is blown.
Two things he always touched on in the postseason, always. Tackles, turnovers. If you look in the postseason, people suck at tackling and people suck turning the ball over. They suck protecting the ball. A lot of times you're playing people, whether it's people are graduating, people are going to the NFL, people have left in the portal. You're playing younger people that haven't played as much football typically. The first thing that kind of goes out the window after not playing in a while is protecting the ball properly, proper ball placement, carrying the ball high and tight, not out away from the body, and then tackling. Like you're saying, it is a lot of practices. There are 3 times in the fall all year that you fully tackle to the ground as a player, and it is the 3 fall camp scrimmages. Other than that, we never fully tackle to the ground. And so if you go these long stretches of time without playing a game, kind of like we're going to do, you're not tackling anybody. You're not even practicing. There's no way to even practice tackling somebody. So I agree. I think that it'll be important about like the way they practice, the way they thud. I think, making sure we're striking and holding blocks at the offensive line is going to be super important going forward, because you're going to need to allow Gunner to have a clean pocket to make these reads that maybe he's not as used to reading and making. So I won't be surprised a lot, though, if they kind of move the pocket a lot more with Gunner, a lot more quarterback boots, kind of get him rolling, looking and reading half of the field, having more like leveling routes being ran by maybe like a tight end and a receiver. Just trying to make things a little more simple for him. But I agree. It's important. Kirby is a creature of habit, though, just to touch on that a quick second that you said. A lot of the practices are very, very close to identical. They have a very similar feel where you come out, you do pre-practice walkthrough, you come out and you stretch, you go to individual drills with your position coach, you do some kind of like specific, you may do like some kind of outside run technique, or like linebackers do some different tackling drills, or like they do, wheel routes versus running backs. And then you come together, we do like team run, 7-on-7, 1-on-1 period. I mean, a lot of them are just, there's only so many ways to practice football. Sooner or later, it just all becomes the same. So a lot of time Kirby's practices week to week for sure are the same. Day to day, I would say there's some similarities there.
Gentlemen, I'm really excited to see what this Georgia team looks like in a few weeks' time. They have 2 more weeks until the quarterfinal in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. Georgia's 1-1 under Kirby Smart in New Orleans. I'm excited to see them get the chance at going 2-1. I believe, Koby, you were on the team for both those games. Real quick, before we turn into our previews, can you talk about the atmosphere in New Orleans for that Sugar Bowl?
Yeah, it's a lot different. I don't know. Obviously, just talk to y'all for a second too. Have you ever been to Mercedes-Benz? I think Harrison, you went for SC Championship, right? So when you're on the field, did you like stop and look around up into the stadium seats at all? Could you see fairly well, like people in the crowd?
I think fairly decently.
Like if you're on the field and you stand and you just like look up into the crowd, could you like pick people out at all? Like not pick people out, but like, you know what I'm saying?
Not so high up, but lower down.
Yeah, lower down. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. The one in New Orleans, the way the lighting is in the stadium, I guess because it's older, the field is so bright and the stands are so dark that like you turn and like that's the one thing I remember from this game. If you like turn to look at the crowd at all, it is just like a black curtain. Like you cannot see anybody, like even on the front row. It's so that's dark. Wild. It is the weirdest thing. And I remember it both years that like I just guess the way that the dome is angled, the lights, they're so bright, you just can't see. I always thought that was so interesting, so unique compared to any stadium I'd ever been to. But otherwise, it was great. We stayed at 2 really nice hotels when we were down there, played 2 really good teams. Obviously kind of fiddled around with Texas. A lot of guys opting out, a lot of guys not taking it seriously. I think that was at a point in Kirby's career where he was kind of sifting through those last remnants of market recruits that were in senior leadership. And I can't blame guys. If there are better opportunities awaiting in the NFL, it is 100% on you if you want to, say, hey, I'm done. But beating Baylor felt good. That was a great way to kind of end things that year.
I think, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I've never heard that before. Like, Mercedes-Benz, I've had the opportunity to be on the field a couple times because traditionally Mill Creek would always open up there. And the one thing that I always noticed about that stadium is just how massive it is. It's like the footprint of that stadium, like I guess it only holds like 78,000 or something like that. It's not as big as the Georgia Dome used to be. But just its footprint itself is massive and it's absolutely gorgeous. But and then now they have the field turf in New Orleans now where they used to, I think it was one of the last stadiums that had the actual AstroTurf, if I'm not mistaken. And if you've ever, and thank God, I mean, you guys are young, you guys never had to play on AstroTurf. The Georgia Dome used to have AstroTurf, and that is like playing on concrete. Now, as a punter, it was freaking awesome because that damn ball hits the ground. It's like, boom! It's like 81-yard punt. Let's go. But as an athlete trying to get tackled on that stuff, God have mercy on your soul. But yeah, all right. So we have some college football playoffs to talk, Harrison.
Yeah. Can you just go ahead real quick? Can you just hit us with that sound effect again? Just like there we go. Let's start with, I guess, maybe the more predictable matchup. For me, this one's rather simple. Clemson goes on the road to Darrell K. Royal, Texas Memorial Stadium to face the Longhorns. You have a rematch of the Texas High School State Championship game in terms of quarterback battles. Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers. Klubnik has the upper hand all time and face-to-face. Klubnik beat Ewers in a state title down there in Texas. Now they rematch. I think the funniest thing to me when this matchup was announced was looking at the reactions. You saw Clemson's reaction. They had a watch party. And you saw, I think it was a pizza party, by the way. And Klubnik's face just lit up when he found out he's going back home. This is a kid who's from Austin. I don't know if he grew up a Texas fan. I don't know the allegiances there, but he grew up in Austin. He's familiar with that Texas program. He's familiar with Texas A&M. This is a homecoming for him. Then on Quinn Ewers' side, he was once the Kombucha Cowboy, if y'all remember that, before he transferred to Texas. And actually left Texas high school to go play Ohio State. He's trying to defend his home turf. Guys, in terms of this matchup, let's just get first reactions to this matchup. Where are we leaning in terms of this game? To me, I don't see this as the pick'em game. I think this next one's going to be the pick'em. And if y'all disagree, feel free to call me stupid and let me know.
I'll start us off, Dan. Start us off hot because I'm coming out right out of the gate disagreeing with you. I think given the longevity of time, I'll go back to talking about it again. I think you give Dabo Swinney the time to prepare. I think he's going to be calling in all the favors. Anybody anybody knows that part of your coaching tree, your coaching network is calling in favors in the postseason. I mean, he's going to be calling Brett Venables, who Oklahoma played Texas. Obviously wasn't a great game this year, but somebody who is used to helping Dabo prepare a defensive game plan. I think Clemson will come out and will have quite the defensive game plan for Texas's offense. I think the biggest question will be, can Clemson out-offense Texas's defense? I think Texas defense is a very, very good defense that is very difficult to drive the length of the field on. I think that Clemson's going to be looking for turnovers. Like you're saying, I think the game plan beating Texas is out there. I think, Kirby and the Dogs have shown it to you. You're going to have to get to the quarterback, disrupt some rhythm and timing, and you're going to have to stop the run. And I think Clemson's built to stop the run. I think they have good enough interior defensive linemen and good enough linebacker play that they can definitely limit the explosiveness on the ground from Texas. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. I'm very excited. I wish that Clemson would come out in like the purple tops or something to play instead of that way. It's not just like an orange fest.
So there's a lot to chew on there. Koby definitely brought a different perspective than I thought. I thought we were going to be kind of lockstep here that Texas is just, in my opinion, the superior team. However, they haven't played anybody all year except for Georgia, and the two times that they played Georgia, they lost. So maybe Kobe's onto something that I haven't paid attention to. But what it comes down to for me is the one person in this entire football game that I can't trust is Klubnik. I don't trust the guy. He very rarely lives up to the billing consistently. He can make plays that, and I'm sure as a Clemson fan, the fact that he can make plays is probably what pisses you off more than anything else, is because the guy has the talent to be ultra successful. However, it doesn't show up every single day. But they do have a weapon, and I believe his name is Mufasa, right? Isn't the running back?
I don't. Yeah, you're close
No,
there.
Kobe's killing me here. He's like
Mafa.
Mafa.
That's it. Yeah.
Mafa. Well, I'll just call him Mufasa because it's way cooler.
That's a great nickname again.
Yeah, so Mufasa, the king of the jungle, is a really good running back. But, we don't know exactly how healthy he is. That was one of the things that they were talking about whenever they were doing the seeding, was that Clemson was really, really, really banking on getting that first-round bye to be able to rest his shoulder, because I believe it's his AC joint, the shoulder that's a little banged up or whatever. Again, to me, I think that Texas is a more physical team. I believe playing at home is a massive advantage. I think Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback. For whatever reason, I just don't think Texas and Georgia is a good matchup for Texas. And then the other thing with Clemson is that they've had an opportunity to do certain things this year, and they've fallen flat. And, I know this is a cheap shot, but, when you struggle in the ACC, how many what do they have? Just the one ACC loss? Is that right? This is why I don't like it when you go freaking solo screen, Harrison. Because
they have
just
one ACC loss.
Yeah.
All right. So who was the ACC loss to?
Louisville.
And Louisville is not a very good football team. Now, you could say that about just about everybody that's in the playoffs, is they have a bad loss. Everybody does. Georgia's would be Ole Miss, I guess. But I don't know. I have thought about this game a little bit, and every time I think about this game, I just think this is going to be a Texas win by double digits. And I'm not saying by 30. I'm not saying that. I think this is like a 12 to 14 point win where it's not really as close as the scoreboard says, but they don't really pull away. I don't see a situation where they're going to get out to a 30-point lead in this game and just bury them. But I also don't think this is coming down to a final field goal. But Kobe did shine a light on some different areas to where Clemson has a real good shot in this game.
Just real quick, Kobe, because I see you got the mic over there. I had this question for both of y'all. And because Dan questioned Cade Klubnik, which I think me and you are locked up there. I'm not sure if I'm buying into Cade Klubnik's going to go out here and be that quarterback that gets hot at the right time and plays his best football. Now, he has played better football down the stretch here, has been a big reason why Clemson has been able to rebound here. Gentlemen, my question is, so if you trust Texas and the Texas offense more than you do Clemson, who's going to be the quarterback leading that offense? I know Quinn Ewers played really well versus Georgia from 20 to 20. They were operating at a high level in the passing game. But I think the one criticism that the three of us can all agree on is Arch Manning should have been more involved in that game plan, because he gives you something that Ewers does not, and that's athleticism. That's the ability to run the ball. Is it possible that at some point, maybe this game or down the stretch here in this potential playoff run for Texas, that Arch Manning's the one making the big plays?
I think it'll 100% depend on what level of defense Clemson plays, I guess, because for us, the reason you didn't see Arch a lot, the reason you saw Quinn be asked to do a lot in the red zone is because we were absolutely stuffing the run. There was nowhere to run. There was no yards to be gained. You had to throw the ball in the red zone. I think that's why Quinn was in the red zone. Because he was having a lot of success, like you're saying, from 20 to 20, throwing the ball. The problem is when you're only getting a yard a run, even if you bring in Arch, you're just letting him take unnecessary hits in a game where, you see Carson Beck go out. The last thing you want to do is take the future of Texas football and cost your season next year trying to win a game this year. I think that's always a big balance when you have such a high-profile backup that also is super athletic. People are going to be asking questions if you run Arch Manning on a read option left and he tears his ACL and can't play next season. Somebody's going to say, why do we have him even in this game doing that? Don't we have running backs that can do that? So I can see the limit of Arch. I also see the danger he brings. in a perfect world as an offensive coordinator, you expect to be able to turn around, hand the ball off to the running back and get 4 or 5 yards.
I would have told you that, all right, with quarterbacks, I usually fall in line of Quinn Ewers is the guy who got you here. Quinn Ewers has been your quarterback all year long. Don't go and do something cute, when you don't need to. However, it worked for Nick Saban twice. So I'm not going to say that it's a horrible idea. But I will say the one factor that has changed, okay, one factor that none of us can dispute that has changed from the Georgia game to today. There is one massive development that has happened, and that is Texas told Quinn Ewers that if he wants to play college football next year, it ain't going to be at Texas. So there is no longer that restriction of we got to make sure that Quinn is happy and ready to go, because now he's already been told this is Arch's team next year. So if they, for whatever reason, and I'm not saying I advocate this, but if they felt like it's time to go to Arch, that ship has already sailed. Like they don't, there's no damage that can be done at this point, if that makes any sense. Like, because the narrative has already been, or not the narrative, but the information has already been shared. So they don't have to try to keep Quinn happy and keep him in the nest anymore. So I think if there is a reason to go to Arch for whatever reason, and it could be Koby's, talking about, or Harrison talking about playing inside the 20s, or Koby just talking about maybe, Quinn's not getting the job done and you got to go there. But I think Koby brings up a really good point where you're not going to sacrifice the future of your program on something that your running back should be able to accomplish, right? Now, if you're running the ball successfully and you add them into the run game, I think that's a different conversation. But if you're saying I got to bring Arch into the game because we can't run the ball, I think that's a dangerous recipe, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. But if you're saying I'm putting Arch in the game not for a gadget, but because he is now my quarterback, that's a completely different conversation. And I think a week ago I wouldn't have been willing to have that conversation with you. However, now knowing what we know about their plans for next year, I'd be willing to have that conversation with you. If you really feel like he gives you the best opportunity to win, then you got to do it.
And I guess here's my question from the Clemson perspective in terms of how these two teams match up. Because to me, when I look at the paper, and this differs from the next game that we'll talk about, Texas is the better team on paper, I feel like. You look at their points, you look at their defense. They have the number 2 scoring defense in America. Georgia knows just how hard it is to move the ball in that defense. They also know, I guess, a little bit of what it takes to beat Texas too. So, but when I look at these two teams, and you do it maybe even position by position, I think Texas gets the edge at majority of these units. I think Texas defensive line, well, maybe not. Maybe defensive line, I think, is neck and neck there in terms of both units. I think Texas does have the difference makers up front. So does Clemson. I think defensive backs, you got to give it to Texas. Quarterback, I think, other than Koby, I think Dan and I say lean Texas on that one. Running back, I guess it's maybe a toss-up. Depends on how Texas runs the ball. Which running backs show up.
I think Clemson has the advantage there. If all running backs are healthy, I think Clemson probably has slight advantage over Wiseman.
And then I think this is fair. Receiver is a blowout. It's Texas, right? Texas has so many guys. What do we say?
Clemson has some young guys that are pretty freaking talented, bro. I mean, they maybe don't have the quarterback to get them the ball, so then I guess that negates that advantage. So maybe Texas is the clear winner.
I think I'll look at it this way when I really break it down, right? Texas is a team that feels like they should be there, has felt like they should be there all year, and is going to feel like there are more games ahead of them. Clemson's going to unload the whole clip, for a lack of a better term.
Fair.
I mean, they are lucky. They are lucky. They are loving the man, Fran Brown in Syracuse. They're loving the way things have turned out with, winning the ACC. They are going to give it everything Dabo has. And I think the big thing is Dabo has coached in a lot of these games. And I think that's what a lot of us forget. A lot of us like to give him a hard time because he's been a little slow to change. He has coached in, 9 different playoffs in the 4-team playoff era. Crazy. And he's won a lot of games. I mean, I single-handedly thought in 2018 he could be the reason Nick Saban was on his way to retirement. Like the beatdown they gave them in that national championship, I was like, whew, this may be the beginning of the end for what has been, going on for so many years. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. But, I just think that, yes, I think if you look at it on paper, Texas far superior team, I would say, in almost like we're talking about every position on the field. I just have a good feeling for some reason about this Clemson team in this game, in this matchup. It's kind of like the coach with all the ego versus, just the humble, quiet. We're just a little old Clemson. We're just lucky to be here. Just hope we can get a first down. So
golly gee gosh.
Yeah, we're just lucky to be on the same field as these guys.
As I think it was Bruce Davis said, poor old Clemson. Gentlemen, I guess we'll save predictions till the very, very end. Let's move on to the second playoff preview of tonight. This, to me, is a coin flip because I don't know which way I'm leaning in this game. And that's why I'm depending on the three of us to maybe talk myself into leaning one way or the other. Tennessee, yes, the Volunteers have finally showed up in the postseason, are going on the road to Ohio State up there in the horseshoe to take on the Buckeyes. I guess first things first, we got to address the elephant in the room here. Or shall I say the Wolverine in the room. Last time we saw Ohio State, not impressive at all. Probably one of their most embarrassing losses to Michigan in quite some time. They've lost 4 in a row, and Michigan did it this time with their run game. They were just physically dominant. Ran for over 177 yards on the number 7 ranked rushing defense in America, and it made it look pretty easy. Michigan did it without a quarterback. Heck, Michigan had less than 100 yards passing, just physically dominant. If there's one thing we know about this Tennessee team, and Dan, we've been saying it from the beginning, this Tennessee team predicates itself on its run game. This year, more so than any other year, they are a run-first football team. On paper, and Dan and I were talking about this pre-show before Koby hopped on. When you look at it on paper, it looks like Tennessee has the edge here. But is that how we're feeling? Because we know football's not played on paper.
All right, so let me start from the top. Look, Coach born on third, thinking he hit a triple. I can't stand that guy. Like, I understand that part of my hatred for Ohio State has been my stepfather is a massive Michigan fan. I am not a Michigan fan, but I think his hatred for Ohio State has bled over, okay? Outside of Caleb Downs, who I love to death, everybody else, I don't – I'm not going to say anything bad, but you know what I mean. I just don't like them. So I want Tennessee to win this game with a furious passion. Like, I will be singing friggin' Rocky Top, and I don't care listen, y'all Georgia fans can, like, not come at me. I don't give a shit. I'm telling you, I hate Ohio State with a passion, and I think I have said multiple times this year that I think talent alone that Ohio State is probably the most talented team in the entire nation. So I am not out here saying that they're not a talented team. However, they're not a well-coached football team outside of Brian Hartline, and I hope to God somebody gives Brian Hartline a head coaching job so he can get the hell out of Ohio State. We could finally start getting some receivers down here at Georgia, and then Coach Bourne on third could go coach, Appalachia State or whatever. I don't give a rat's ass about that guy and his fake black beard. But the other thing is you're 100% right. The one thing that travels is defense. We always know that, right? And that was one of the biggest questions we had about Tennessee for the longest time was, could they play enough defense? We know that their offense, their fast-paced offense, can score points. The other thing that travels is a running game. Tennessee has a very good running game right now. Sampson is a running back that has really, really, really impressed me. Even in the Georgia game where we slowed them down a lot, Sampson still impressed me quite a bit coming out of the backfield, and he a very tough runner. And then that offensive line. Hey, can we talk about how the hell does Cooper Mays get first team all SEC as a center? I mean, we said that guy could not play football at all. I mean, that caused a complete shit show at the University of Georgia because we wouldn't take Cooper Mays. Then we ended up losing another Mays. It was actually a decent football player. But I don't think anybody's really upset about that. But anyway, their offensive line has done a good job. Their offense can score. Nico is getting a lot more comfortable. his father is down one finger. But I think Tennessee has a really good chance. And then, I don't know which one of you just said a second ago about, I think it was you, Koby, was talking about, I don't know, it doesn't matter, about Clemson is going to be playing fired up to be there. And Texas believes that there's something beyond this and they may not, their full attention may not be on it, right? Well, Ohio State's attention better freaking be on this game, because if it's not, I think Tennessee can put it on them. And Tennessee has the ability to put it on you pretty quick. And to me, Ohio State has not shown the resolve that Georgia has shown. Unfortunately, it's been required to be able to come back from a big deficit. Ohio State hasn't shown the ability to do that this year. Again, from the top, I will tell you, I believe in my heart of hearts, Ohio State is probably the most talented team in the entire country. But I think Tennessee's pissed off and they want to play hard and they have the ability to go in there. Now, Harrison has had a good point, and I'll let him talk about it, about Tennessee's having struggle on the road. But I think this is a game that Tennessee 100% can go in there and win. I'm not guaranteeing victory, but I'm saying this is a game that they have the ability to win, Koby.
I 100% agree. I think if we're going to just start off with some born on third base jabs, I just can't stand Ryan Day. You would be very hard pressed, I think, for many college football fans to say he is a likable or enjoyable guy. I don't know how Ohio State continues to just get arrogant, head coaches over the years, but they just have really started collecting just hateable coaches. I'll never forget when he had something to say to Lou Holtz, of all people, after they won that close Notre Dame game like 2 or 3 years ago. He's like, "Oh, we got a tough football team, Lou." In the post-game interview, I'm like, Lou's 90 years old, man. Like, leave poor Lou alone. I think that this is going to be what do we do great versus what you do great. And I think what Tennessee does great is they run the ball. And typically, what does Ohio State do great is they're great against the run. So I really think it's going to be an ego check for both teams. I mean, if I'm Heupel, I'm saying we're going to run the ball, and then we're going to throw play action, some big plays off of having success in the run game. And if I'm Ohio State, I look at it just like kind of like the Michigan game. What do we have to do to win? We have to stop the run. What wasn't Ohio State able to do in the Michigan game? They weren't able to stop the run. They gave up long runs, consistent runs that they're really not used to doing. I agree. Again, on paper, I think Ohio State probably the most talented roster in the country. I think when they are executing at a high level, you saw it against Oregon. They can score with anybody. They can score at will. They play really, really good defense. They're hard to push the ball down the field on because they're really suffocating up front. So I don't know. I agree. Tennessee's kind of struggled on the road this year. I'm not sure that will pay a bunch of dividends for them going into this, but it's part of the reason it's so fun that they're on college campuses. Like, I don't think the Shoe is a easy place to play. They're going to be playing, I'm pretty sure, at night. I'm pretty sure it's the 8:00 game. That's tough, like you're saying. So we'll see. I think that in this one, if Ohio State can stop the run, Tennessee doesn't have a chance. So,
and that's the formula to beating Tennessee. As cliche as it sounds, that is legitimately no cliche the way to beat Tennessee. Their passing game, their explosive passing game is predicated off how well they can run the ball. Because the moment they start running the ball and your front five can't stop and your front seven can't stop and you got to add a safety into the box, your safety starts rolling down because you're worried about the run, they're going to run a guy right past your safety, right above your safety, and God willing, if the ball falls into his hands, it's a touchdown in a explosive one. I'm just a hitchhiker on a lonely highway in the middle of nowhere more than Will Howard win a game. And that was the next point I had. I think Tennessee has the better quarterback. Thank you for the alley-oop there, Robert. I'll go ahead and try and slam that one away. I think Nico is the better quarterback. I was really impressed with what he did coming into Sanford Stadium and playing the game he did. I think that was something Dan talked about on the postgame show after that week. Tennessee lost. Tennessee got shut out the second half, but Nico looked much better, much more composed, much more poised than Hendon Hooker did. I know Nico has taken some criticism this year for his deep ball accuracy, but yeah, I ain't trying that one. We're just a Nico guy over here on this show because I can't do his last name and I don't want to butcher it. I butcher enough names as it is. So, but I think Nico's the better quarterback, and I think that as we've seen in the playoffs has been about quarterbacks and offenses getting hot. And to me, the scary team that if they get hot could be scary is Tennessee for a lot of the right reasons in the way their offense is built over there. What an iconic duo. Dan talking and his mic being muted. Dan, what say you on this? Because Robert has a great question for you here. Who has more bodies in a oh, never mind. I fell for that one.
Oh wow! I just read it. Damn it, boy! Oh, you put it up on the screen. Oh, that's good shit. I don't even know what you asked me. You said something about Nico, and you said something about me being on mute, and that's twice in one freaking day. And I used to make fun of Harrison religiously for being on mute. No, Will Howard is a little bit of a disappointment. And, who would have thought that Hannah McCord, if he would have stayed, they might have been in a better position. Which I know, Koby, you're in line. I'm just saying, I don't think there was a long line of people last year who would have begged him to stay. Will Howard, obviously a talented guy. And, I think I'm not going to go on a rant or anything like that, but I think one of the things I don't like about college football and college football fans is when they say so-and-so guy sucks. Okay, well, they don't suck. Okay? Like they're maybe not as good as you want them to be, but they don't suck. If you've ever been around a Division I quarterback, if you've ever been on the same field with him, if you've ever been within hands distance of a guy when he's throwing the football, when that ball comes out of their fingertips, it's different. It's just different. You can see it. It's visible. So I hesitate. I don't people say like Will Howard sucks. Will Howard does not freaking suck, bro. He's really damn good. He's just not executing at a really high level in this offense. And I don't trust him the same way that I don't trust Klubnik. Again, Klubnik doesn't suck. He's an elite quarterback. There's a reason he got that 5-star rating out of high school. It's just for whatever reason in the system that they're in, it doesn't work. I mean, if you think about those guys who go to the NFL and bust out, most of the time it's not because they're not very good. It's just the system that they went to does not line up with what they do. Like look at Tom Brady, for example. If Tom Brady would have went somewhere else other than New England at the time that he did, I mean, does he turn into anything? I mean, if he would have went to Atlanta, if Tom Brady was drafted to Atlanta, what are the odds that Tom Brady becomes Tom Brady? I think very slim to none. So I don't know. Here's an example. How about the greatest quarterback of all time? Right. Am I wrong? I mean, jump in. No, I know you're having fun, but jump in. Am I wrong?
No, you are. You're 100% right. It was just funny. Like, here's a good example. How about the greatest quarterback to ever play the game? Would he be the greatest quarterback to ever play the game? But I do agree. I mean, I think that, like you're saying, you look at the greats, and part of being a great is that you're put in a great situation. You're put with a great coach. Like, you really just can't name a lot of quarterbacks or a lot of players that have been in just a phenomenal Hall of Fame caliber player on a terrible team with a terrible coach. It just typically doesn't happen. It's why I think Cincinnati needs to blow it up, go get a new head coach, because you're wasting 2 Hall of Fame players in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on a guy that does not need to be the head coach in Cincinnati anymore. I mean, there's no way they should be as bad as they are. That's a little bit of a side rant. Back onto this. I agree. Dan, Robert's in the chat. Harrison, you're not in this group chat, so you don't know. But we're in a big chat with a bunch of Georgia fans, and so it makes my skin crawl to hear people that are like, So glad this person's going in the portal. So glad this guy is not playing. This guy sucks. I don't know how we even offered this guy a scholarship. I'm like, this guy's a top 1% athlete in the world, which is crazy to think about too, as a college athlete. They don't suck. The situation maybe didn't work out for him here. Some external factor. Maybe they just don't care. That's another thing that people don't think about. These are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. I mean, they have their own lives and problems and wants and desires. It's just all these things that kind of come together. It just makes it difficult to look at. I think that, again, the Ohio State situation at quarterback, you move on from Kyle McCord, and you have a lot of Ohio State fans say, man, he sucks, and he push him off to Syracuse. And what happens at Syracuse? Fran Brown gives him a big hug, says, man, we believe in you. This is your football team. This is your offense. We're going to go the way you go. If you go great, we will go great. And it's that positivity, that belief, that extra, love that this guy gets. Maybe that puts him in the meeting rooms a little early. Maybe that gets him paying just a little bit more attention in film study. Maybe that gets him throwing routes on air with the receivers in the summer a little bit more. I mean, you just never know what can make a guy tick. And I think at a place like Ohio State, a place that has had really good quarterbacks, I think that when the fan base starts saying this guy sucks and the coach isn't behind him, I mean, you look at this season. Perfect example, Georgia. A lot of fans want to play blame game with Carson Beck. What's Kirby done all year? Hey, man, he's doing what we ask him to do. If you think he sucks, then you think we suck. And a lot of fans do, whatever. But I guess at some point, he never once singled out like, yes, the turnovers are on Carson. He's having a bad year. He is like, this is our guy. If we win or lose, it is with Carson Beck. And it's that belief and that longevity that gives you an edge, I think. And I think that Ohio State just hadn't had that with the quarterback position in a couple of years.
Gentlemen, I like how you wrap that up right there, Koby, because that's going to segue us right into predictions. I'm going to buy myself a little bit more time on this last game. Let's go right to Texas versus Clemson. I know we've already stated our case here. Koby, you have the most diverse case in terms of Clemson, so you're going first for this one. Give us your score prediction and give us a little reason behind it.
Yeah, I think score prediction's a little tough. Just trying to think what score makes sense, right? So 28-31 would be both teams score 4 touchdowns, one team kicks a field goal. I think I like that. I probably would think it'd have to be a little bit lower scoring because I'm going to pick Clemson to win this game. I think it's going to have to be something closer to 24-21 Clemson in a game like this. I think the defense is really tough against the run again. I think they're going to be very bend, don't break against the pass, kind of like we have been. And I think that, Clemson's able to move the ball effectively enough against their defense that they squeak this one out down in Texas. And I think it's gonna kind of catapult you into the Arch Manning era down in Austin.
I cannot be swayed by Koby's brilliant argument. I think he had some really good points. I think Harrison, you and I both listening to that, maybe came off of our Texas domination. But I still think that this Texas team has enough to get it done. Again, I don't trust Klubnik enough to pick Clemson in the game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I'm thinking I would say 31-21, something like that. I'm thinking right around 10 points in that range. And again, I will go on record. I am absolutely horrible at predicting scores. I can give you a winner more times than not, but to give you the actual score, not great. So, maybe run out and bet Texas because I say bet Texas, but don't run out and bet a score. Okay? So I just want to go on record. So I don't want anybody coming back saying, hey, I lost money because Dan's dumbass said it was going to be 31-21. But since Harrison asked for a score, that's my score.
Dan, we may not be a great score predictor, but I have learned Dan's pretty damn good at picking the lines. Dan's really good. So maybe next time we do this, I'll just give Dan the spread and let him pick against or with it. For me, I'm going to fall in line with Dan here. I think Texas is the better team. I think there's just something about this Texas team, if they can hit that next gear, that they can become really dangerous. And I don't think we've seen the best of the Texas offense yet. I think they have the best defense in the country. I'm not a believer in the Clemson offense. I'm not a believer in Cade Klubnik. Maybe this is a hot take here. I don't think DKR is that hard of a place to play. And maybe that bodes well for Clemson somehow, some way. But I'm taking Texas to win here. I think, this is tough. I'll go 38-14. I think it's going to be a good win for Texas. And I'm going with this because I go with 14 because Texas hasn't allowed over 30 points other than once this year. And I don't think, I forget what the stat is of them allowing more than 20 points or more on defense. So I'll keep them under the 20-point threshold. Gentlemen, moving on to the main event of the night. I guess I'll go first here since y'all have already talked to me. Y'all have already gave me the Bible here in terms of this game. I guess I'll go first. Koby, we had you open up the last one. So I'll have you go last and we'll have Dan go second. Or no, we'll put Dan last and you go second. We'll let Dan make the headgear pick if he wants. To me, and this is going to differ from where I was just leaning, but I think both of y'all are going one direction. So we need a contrarian over here. And just like Clemson's Koby over here, I guess I'll pick Ohio State just to be the outlier here, kind of. But here's my reasoning. I think on paper, as we said, Tennessee has the edge. I don't think that. I think we know that when you look at the stat sheet. It's lean Tennessee. Now, Ohio State is the favorite, but I guess for me here is I have questions still about this Tennessee team in terms of how they play on the road. I have questions about Josh Heupel and how he coordinates on the road. The one thing this Tennessee offense, its biggest kryptonite, not only has it been Georgia, but it has been crowd noise. I assume the Horseshoe will be a tough place to play this weekend, considering I think this is their first home night game of the season, which is unbelievable, but also believable because they have big noon kickoff. But here's my take on this game. I think this is the lowest scoring game of the first round because you have two pretty good defenses, and I know you have high-powered offenses when they want to be high-powered, but I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think this is a race to 20, and I think Ohio State's going to get there first. I'm taking the Buckeyes 24-20 in a close but competitive and great game there in the Horseshoe. Koby, what say you?
Yeah, I'm glad that you think you got everybody figured out here. Oh, I'm going to be Mr. Devil's Advocate and take Ohio State. I'm taking Ohio State too. At home, at night, Tennessee historically does not play well on the road. Heupel does not call games well on the road. You just come off maybe the most embarrassing loss in Ryan Day's career. You were out-physicaled at the point of attack. Your defense, all they've heard about is, they ran the ball down your throat. I just think that Ohio State's going to come out and they are going to eliminate the run game. I think that's going to be their whole game plan is to make Nico drop back, decipher what kind of defense, what kind of pressure he's looking at, and they're going to get after him. I mean, they're going to pin their ears back. They're going to put their DBs on islands, and I think they can. I don't know if anybody on the outside for Tennessee I trust to go win one-on-ones all game long. I'm sure Tennessee's going to hit a couple big shot plays, but I just don't know that there is a mismatch on the outside against some of the DBs for Ohio State that I just think you're going to be able to hit over and over and over again at will. I think this is not as pretty of a game as maybe you might think. I think it's going to be like 34-14. Ohio State kind of bullies poor Tennessee.
All right, so listen, if we're being realistic, Ohio State should win this game pretty comfortably. They are the most talented team. They are at home. They probably will be at night, as Koby mentioned. They have everything going in their direction. They have a reason to play in this game. They have a reason to be angry. Ohio State, absolutely crapped the bed when they had an opportunity to beat Michigan for the first time in 3 years. So on the record, Ohio State should be able to beat this game. But I'm going to tell you that I'm going to go with old Rocky Top. I want to see that run game on the road. I want to see Nico light up the horseshoe. I want to see Samson with this long, luscious hair in the end zone multiple times. And I want to see Coach Bourne on third. Exiled from the horseshoe. Oh, Rocky Top.
Well, there we go, folks. We have Dan taking Texas, Tennessee. Koby's picking Clemson and Ohio State. And I have Texas and Ohio State. When I put Dan as the headgear pick, I certainly didn't think I'd have Dolly Parton singing Rocky Top over here to end the show. I'm just excited for football to be back, gentlemen, in meaningful games. I'm excited for bowl weekend to be here. And I know we're going to talk bowl week right now, but we may incorporate some next week, the ongoing competition of who can pick games better, Koby or Dan. I know over on the DGD podcast, Dan won the pick'em competition. I don't know if he knows his record off the top of his head, but knowing Dan, he probably does. Dan, do you have your pick'em record?
No, but listen, I have to give Koby credit, okay? I have to give respect where respect is due. It was a situation where at the end of the season, if he would have played it safe, we probably could have ended up tying. But he decided to go a different direction, and he picked against me to try to win it. So I respect game, okay? And he played the game. He lost like a man. He congratulated me on the victory, but I respect the attempt to win the game. So I got nothing but respect for Koby. Man can pick a game. Now, listen, the beginning of the year, I was whooping y'all's ass, but you got hot. Koby got hot. I got cold. I've been kind of like I'm been about 75% down the stretch, and old Koby might have been hitting around 85, 90 towards the end of the year. So he might be a little bit hotter than me right now. And I just hate Ohio State, so I'm probably going to lose this pick. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going to lose that pick, but I just can't pick Ohio State because I don't like them.
I do like how we all kind of picked on our own accord here. I don't think any of us was influenced. Obviously, Koby, didn't let me be the lone horse over here. Had to come join me on the Ohio State train. So I guess we are trying to fade Dan, if you will, on that one. But Koby, I think, has the boldest pick here in terms of Clemson over Texas. I will be just impressed if you just nail this pick 1 for 1, because you have Clemson winning. What? It was rather it was 2 scores, right?
No. 24-21. Tight.
Okay.
Tight, low scoring.
But then you have Ohio State winning rather convincingly in the horseshoe.
Rolling
over them. Folks, we are excited for a great weekend of college football, a great week of college football. Over here to my right is Dan Kiley. Down below is Koby Pyrz. Make sure to follow them at Koby Pyrz, at Dan Kiley 3. I'm at Harrison Reno. We appreciate you for joining us. We'll be back here live 7:30, previewing Indiana, Notre Dame, and what's the last first round game?
Penn State, SMU.
Penn State. I already know where Dan's picking in that game. There ain't no questioning. Dan is Mr. Anti-Big Ten over here on the show, but he is battling Koby here for our 3 picks. I think Roberts. Yep. Welcome to the experience. It is Koby. So, my bad. Dan, I have your cue ready for you this time.
Is that right? Go Dawg.